All right, the song that was just playing is a song by Minister Jesse Fatoma. The title of the song is Glory. And I have with me here, I'm honored to have with me here in the studio, Minister Jesse Fatoma. He's a gospel artist. He's a career professional, an entrepreneur. He does a whole lot of things, a philanthropist, and I'm very honored to have him with me here in the studio. This is the first episode of Nana Gazo Studios going live on YouTube, and let me welcome the brother Jesse Fatoma into the studio. Brother, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me here.
All right. Thank you for joining me here live in the studio. I have a whole lot of things that I wanted to really, talk to you about and have that conversation. The first part of it has to do with your gospel ministration. As a gospel artist, I know you play a lot of instruments. You do a lot of things at the church as well. That is what I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
So first of all, for people who don't really know you, if you can just briefly introduce yourself to some of the people out there who may never heard of you before, or never seen you, never heard of any of your music, never seen your video, just introduce yourself to them.
Hi, viewers. My name is Jesse Fatoma. I am originally from Sierra Leone. I was born in Sierra Leone, and I actually migrated here. I've been here for a little over maybe 14, 15 years, kind of. I've been in the gospel field for quite some time, but when I moved here, I try to make myself established first. Even as though when I was doing that, I was still going to church, but I was not fully engaged in doing the gospel songs and stuff like that. I am married with kids. I am a nurse by profession, and I've been a nurse for 7, 8 years now. But I've been in the mental health, substance abuse, and psych field for over 13 years since I came into this country. That's what I've been doing. But I feel fulfilled when I get engaged in doing the things of God. So that's what keeps keep me going.
All right, wonderful. That's very good to hear of the background that you just gave out there. So, as a gospel artist, initially you talked about your profession. You're a career professional, that I know for sure, and doing gospel. How does it feel like mixing the two? Is it very difficult? Because sometimes, especially in the African culture, people back home in Africa, before they never really took it serious as far as gospel ministration, but now it's getting so big and it makes a lot of money to a lot of people. It's like full-time career, but that's not what you do. I don't know if maybe you have plans of switching to that, but right now, mixing the gospel ministration with your normal job as a career professional and as a businessman, how is it like?
Sometimes it can be difficult, especially when you have to navigate around family, business, and your career. It can be very, very much difficult. But if you're passionate about it, it's something that you can put a lot of energy or probably decide not to put a lot of energy. At first, what I always tell people, when you try to monetize the gospel, you don't get anything out of it. But when you're passionate about it and you're just doing it because you love God and you want to do the things of God, you will yield a lot of dividend out of it. And I've experienced that. So trying to navigate around my job, my business, and at the same time, going to church or doing the things of God or doing my gospel, it's very difficult. Many times I will have to just try to plug myself in the schedule, even though I don't have that. But I would look at whatever loophole that I have and I'll fit into the schedule and say, okay, let me go and do my music. But it has come to a point because I started writing songs when I was a little boy. It came to a point that I don't sit down to say I want to write a song. Sometimes when I have a moment to myself, that's when I get the inspiration and songs begin to come. And when they come and I try to put them into perspective and put them into rhythm, and if I don't, when they come, sometimes if I don't have my phone to record, if I have a pen or paper, I just write them down and try to begin to hum them. But like I said, knowing how America is, you have to be a man of purpose. If you deviate from your purpose, you will never be able to achieve what you want. And you need to know what you want to do. It's not about just the money or the career. But the first thing first, how in America, of course, people have to pay bills,
Of course, yeah.
and just engaging in just doing music as a foreigner, it can be very difficult for you to get into, especially even your own people to accept your music. Sometimes you have to go an extra mile to do that. Sometimes you have to put in double, effort for them to be able to do that. But if you have a backing, if you have your career and you have your business and you're doing the job because of the money, at the end of the day, somebody will look at you, hey, this guy, I think he's serious about what he's doing. He's not doing it for the money, but we can support you. And then the other thing is having quality social capital. When I talk about quality social capital, it's about the kind of people that you relate with, the people that surround you. The people
They'll be the first people to hear music and to put your name out there.
Yeah, and then you also have to be able to handle criticism.
Right.
If you can handle criticism, then
is it too hard? Is it too hard to do the music, especially from the diaspora? Many a times I've heard people, even not just people in the gospel fraternity, people who do like other like secular music, where they talk about if you're back home in Africa, being an artist is relatively easy. It's easier for people to hear your music. It's easier for your name to be out there than recording from here, because first of all, it's expensive. And I think you said that earlier, where like recording, finding the right producer, finding the right studio, the mixes and everything, that somebody who's in Africa, those things come in handy for them and put their music out there. And even people, Africans who live in the diaspora, for the most part, the music that they listen to are music that come from back home.
Correct.
It's hard for, how do you see that?
Sometimes that is why I always tell people, when you are dealing with a set of people or a group of people, let's say, that are coming from your angle, you first and foremost have to be able to appeal to them. If your people cannot accept your music, it's going to be quite difficult a little bit for you to be able to bounce, just over them to go to the next level or maybe the next group of people. So it's quite expensive, like we've stated here, to engage in recording here. The producers is quite expensive because here they charge hourly, and you go to the studio, somebody will tell you, okay, from this time to this time, you have to pay this. If it goes beyond that, and then you still have to pay. So it's quite difficult when, that's why being a gospel artist, that, if you're not, some people just go in because they want for the fame. So sometimes it's very difficult, raising the money to go to the studio if you don't have extra finances that is kept aside to do that.
Because you still have your bills to pay, you still have to go to work and
Correct.
to put out the money to record the music, and the options, even as far as studio producer, it's not even there yet, right?
No, it's by I mean, I can't afford to go to studios like people like how you call it, Chris Tomlin, or all those big artists that are going to. It's quite expensive, and sometimes you have to start from the lower level, trying to hop from one studio to another here in America for you to be able to get the right recording or the right producer. So it's quite, if you don't have the money. But in Africa, I mean, if you have a little bit of money, you can be able to, challenge that and go to a bigger studio and see. So that is why what we do, mostly we go to studios. We tell them, okay, you have to make sure you master your songs. You go to the studio and try to do your vocals. You do your vocals and then send it back, and with the files, the entire files, and say, okay, can you play it live? This is how I want it. This is how I want it. And then so you guys are going to be sending the files back and forth until you actually get the right rhythm that you want for your song.
Right. And it can be time consuming.
Very time consuming.
With a lot of back and forth,
Exactly.
as compared to if you were there back home. So I've seen some people who would sometimes they'll take a vacation back home, and that's when they try to record all their projects, get it mixed and mastered before they come back here, as compared to if you're here and you try to, collaborate. But of course, right now, because of the internet, everything is possible and things and I think you're doing wonderful so far. I've been to church where I've seen you ministering the gospel, playing a lot of instruments. How many instruments do you play, by the way?
Sometimes I look at myself as jack of not all trade, but many trades, and master of none. But I can tell you for sure that I'm more into playing bass guitar. I started off playing bass guitar and then transitioned into playing rhythm guitar. But but at the same time, I was trying to juggle around playing, singing, and this and that. So it came to a point I stopped playing. And so when I moved here, and I started playing again, and playing around people that are professionals, and I wanted to learn more, and I'm open to learning more and more instruments. But it's sometimes can be quite difficult.
Yeah, it can be quite difficult, like you're saying. You're doing wonderful. You just released a project. I don't know if that was your first project. That was back in November or December.
Yeah, that was on October.
That was October. Yeah, and I think it was a limited edition of an album. With how many songs was there on that album?
It was, I believe, it was 6, but I incorporated a medley, which medley has a couple of songs.
Okay.
So that
Was that your first project?
my first project in America, but in Sierra Leone, I've had a couple of projects there. But that was my major project when after saying, okay, I'm done with every other thing, let me get into the full-time gospel songs.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I was there for the luncheon, and it was wonderful. There was a lot of people. Even the performance for that night, I mean, it was beautiful. I stood there and I watched, and I mean, that's somebody who've known you before and watching you on that stage perform. I was in awe. I was like, wow, my goodness, what is going on here? So that is very good coming from you. What are some of the songs you have on that album?
I have one that is called Grace. Grace is actually, it's an embodiment of when God gives you the opportunity to say a particular day or a particular season. So you trying to thank God and thank Him and just praising Him. So that's about the grace. And I also have Glory.
So Glory that we just played is on that album.
Okay. Glory is on the album. And I also have The Way, which is on there. And then I have there's another one called the Sound of Praise. Which is a medley.
Is My Helper on that album too?
No, My Helper is one of the singles that I released just after the album launch.
Okay. Because I've seen on Apple Music, your songs are there. Anybody looking for it? Jesse Fatoma as an artist, and I think you're on all social media platforms as well.
Correct.
Okay, you're good. So that's something that if you're looking to listen to the records on the album, very beautiful songs. Even seeing him perform is even more. It's crazy. It's crazy to see him perform those songs and listening to them like one we just played right now. So tell me about how people take it, because right now when we talk about African gospel, right, Nigeria has taken center stage just like everything else.
Yes.
As far as, because Nigerian artists in gospel, they're everywhere. People listen to their music. I think South Africa is doing wonderful as well. Ghana is right around the corner, like always, where they seem to be doing their own thing. There's a language barrier, language challenges. How does, as an artist from Sierra Leone, right, how do you see the gospel from Sierra Leone and them, holding on to their own and, trying to come up and be like, okay, we're here too, and people should take us serious and we want to take our space, our rightful space?
That's a very salient question. As an artist from Sierra Leone, first and foremost, considering our population, Sierra Leone is just a very small country, about 7 to, let's say, give or take 9, million population. So it's very difficult, and the number of people that have access to internet is very limited number of people.
Okay, I see.
So it's quite very difficult to be able to break into the center stage as an artist coming up. But what we have decided to do as a nation or as a country, or most of my colleagues that I usually talk to about the ventures that we're supposed to take, we always sit down and have a discussion like, what do we do? First and foremost, you have to be able to accept yourself first. Accept what you have, and when you have accepted, making sure that what you have is what is missing, in the other sphere of gospel from some other people. So that's what you're bringing to the table. Accept what you have, make improvement on what you have, and try to make sure that you polish it, you package it, and present it well.
Because more often we've seen countries or other cultures trying to make their sound like the mainstream music. When I talk about the mainstream music, we're talking about the Nigerian gospel songs. Some people say they have an advantage because of the English language, the broken English, but sometimes they speak in their Yoruba and their Igbo, and people still listen to them.
Yes.
So the sound, where like someone from Ghana, people have criticized that sometimes some of these Ghanaian artists are trying to sound like Nigerians, you know, because they want to be mainstream as well. And they think sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't help, right? Is this something that Sierra Leoneans have looked at that as well?
Yes, and that is actually a template that I'm using right now. If you listen to the medley, The Sound of Praise, what I did was I took most of our local languages. I sang in English, but I made sure I also use our local language and haven't sang those songs. I'll be able to translate them into English. So people will be able, because that's what the Nigerians are doing. What they do is they use their local dialects, they sing, and they also translate it in English.
In English,
and
yeah.
making sure that the sound is rich. When the sound is rich and you're doing that, even if the person does not understand what you're saying, sometimes they said God hears whatever language. The song will be able to minister to the person.
I agree.
And will be able to be in tune with whatever you're singing or whatever you're saying. So that is what we are trying to do right now, accepting our language. And I'm doing that. And even when I went back home, I just came back like a few days ago. I did a couple of other songs. And what I did, I've been going back and forth from my local dialect, which is Mende. I sing in Mende and I break it down again into Creole. And I also sometimes I do it in English. So I'm trying to do this. Once your people accept your song, praise and worship, one thing I tell people, there are songs that are meant just to listen to in the car. There are songs that are meant for praise and worship once it gets into the churches. And churches try to sing your song every Sunday and stuff like that and puff it into the ears of people. And then that is going to stay longer in the sphere of, in the sphere of worship or in churches. But if you just say, let me just do one song and like the conventional way of doing song, it's not going to stay longer. People listen to it and they get bored easily.
Right.
But when you do praise and worship, and especially trying to take advantage of your local dialect and try to make it rich and present it to people, everybody wants to hear rich music.
Right.
Sometimes we complain, even as we complain that our people are not listening to our music, but you have to look at yourself and say, okay, if I'm presenting something else to somebody else, if I don't do it the right way, or even just like food, if you don't cook the right food, somebody's not going to eat it.
No, but yeah.
So that's the same like music. If you can't just impose your music on people just because you are from the same country. You also have to be able to do something rich.
Right. Okay. So music has changed a lot. And I don't know if you look at it the same way, where it's not just about recording anymore. It's about performance. Stage performance, going on shows. I know as a gospel artist, most of the shows that you guys attend or the events is usually like gospel programs, like churches being invited. So it's two aspects that I want to look at. One is the monetization part, where you get invited. I've seen you quite a few times where you've traveled out of state to different places to go perform at events and functions. So sometimes when you go to perform in some of these events, right, do you expect to be paid, right, as an artist, or you just look at it from the standpoint of I'm doing the Lord's work?
To me, to be honest, I think I've paid my dues when it comes to that. So I don't expect somebody to pay me if I'm staging a show that I've spent a lot of money to stage that show. I would expect to have some proceeds out of that show.
Right.
But when you call me to come do the Lord's work, I don't take money from people.
Okay.
I don't do it because one, I always tell people, right, how much are you going to pay me that I will not pick up extra shift and go to work and get that money? So instead of putting that burden on you, trying to put a lot of financial burden on you to pay me or to give me anything, I'd rather when you invite me to perform at your function, I'll come and perform. If I have to go pick up extra shift, I'll go pick up extra shift. God has blessed me with a wonderful career that I cannot trade for anything. And so I believe that when I do the Lord's work, the more the Lord,
blesses you.
bless. Yeah.
Blesses you. Okay. Then the other aspect of the question was about performance,
Okay.
right? Where you record the songs, it's out there. You do everything to promote the music, to reach out to friends and family, anybody that to put the music out there and to give you feedback on how the music sounds and everything that's going on with the sound. But then you still have to rehearse as far as performance, right?
Yes.
To go out there because that's very big part of this whole thing, right? Do you consider that as a gospel artist or as any artist, you have to take that part serious of putting a lot of things into your stagecraft, your shows when you go out there to perform to give people whatever that they are there to see?
Yeah. One thing I always tell people is the fact that I liken that to when you go, you say you've written a very flamboyant assignment, right? And then now it's time for you to defend what you've written and you cannot defend it. That is just what I liken that to. I believe that if you're able to go to the studio, if you're able to sing that song, you should be able to perform it live. I don't like singing on tracks. I don't do it. I rather
performing it live. Yeah.
Because that's what is killing the
to show
music
your
right
vocal
now.
skills.
Yeah, that's what is killing the music industry right now. A lot of people they can go to studio and they rely mostly on the engineer to do all the work for them.
Right.
So when it comes to performing live now, it's totally different. It's totally different from what they've done. So it's like copying an assignment from somebody else, and now you cannot be able, you can't be able to defend it. So I believe in live performances. I believe in that when I do something, I should be able to replicate that on the stage. And you put in more effort to do be able to replicate whatever you've done on your track.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's the brother Minister Fatoma that you're listening to right here. I want to talk about lifestyle of a gospel artist.
Okay.
Right. Do you think that as Africans, sometimes we put gospel artists or maybe the church or the pastors, but mostly let me focus on gospel artists, onto a different pedestal from like secular artists as far as how people want to see you live your life, as far as your family situation, how you dress when you come out there and stuff like that? Do you think people rate them differently as being a gospel artist?
Yes, it's a natural phenomenon. People, when everything that is associated with God, people tend to, they tend to look at you from a different perspective. They look at you to be the holiest of the holies. They look at you to be, and that is not what, that's not how it's supposed to be. We are all trying as much as possible to live an exemplary life.
Right.
The goal here is to follow Christ and to live a Christ-like life. But that doesn't mean people don't falter. The biggest pastors do falter. We try to avoid temptations. We try to avoid so many other things. And don't also forget that sometimes as gospel artists, when you go growing up and trying to do all these things, sometimes it's only you. You don't even have support. Sometimes you only get support when maybe you're almost at the verge of making it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes nobody even cares about your music. You can even make your music and sending it out and nobody cares about it. But people tend to judge your character. They will judge whatever you're doing, your lifestyle, your dress. Like one time somebody came up to me, be like, how do you're a gospel artist and then you live in all this kind of lifestyle, flamboyant lifestyle. I told him, I say, I don't live a flamboyant lifestyle. I live an affordable lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Flamboyant lifestyle is different from affordable lifestyle. I mean, I can be able to afford whatever lifestyle I'm living. That doesn't mean that I am trying to show off. That's not what I do. So even when, like you're saying, they put us on a different pedestal. What
is some of the craziest thing you've heard? Would that be that question that someone came and asked you, or like the craziest thing you've heard as a gospel artist? And like you said, somebody said you live in a flamboyant lifestyle because maybe it's the pictures that they've seen of you on social media, yes, or maybe the car they've seen you driving in and stuff like that. What is like the craziest thing somebody has said to you?
Well, one of the craziest things they said, they think that some people think I have money.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes people do approach me for problems that I cannot even be able to solve for myself. Yeah. So a lot of people, but the thing is, I'm very much conscious of being able to balance my lifestyle. That
Right.
if I gave you $1,000, that tells you that I probably have be able to afford $20,000.
20,000 to be, yeah.
So whatever I'm doing, if I can't be able to give out something that will affect my home,
Right.
I don't do that. And because I know if they, if the wall breaks down, it's going to fall back on me and fall back on my family. So I try as much as possible to balance that. Even as much as I tend to be a philanthropist, I give out a lot. I help people, but I'm very much conscious of what I do.
Of what you do. All right, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So now, you said you just came back from Africa.
Yes, I just came.
I want you to tell me. I mean, I know a lot of people they don't very often visit Africa. They don't go back home. You went there. I'm sure part of the things you went there to do, like gospel ministration, and you went there as a family man. Your philanthropist things that you do out there. How's the general atmosphere of Africa, Sierra Leone?
Sierra Leone, the time that I went, just around that time, Sierra Leone had an issue, but that has been solved. There was an attempt of coup d'etat, but that was solved. But the one thing that really broke me down was the fact that when I look at young people and see what is happening, I was, that really broke my heart, especially that has to do with substance abuse and mental health, mental health
Issues.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues, and that's an area that has been neglected in my country. And I was opportune to have discussions, with so many people that are within the hem, closer to the hem of power.
Okay.
And I expressed my dissatisfaction, and I only did not do that. I wrote an article, how Sierra Leone can be a drug-free country in the future. And then I shared that article with some other people. And so many radio stations called me. They have a program that they call Learning Zone. And they called me on, the way forward, what we can do to mitigate these, substance
So you
abuse.
think the government is not doing enough to help the youth?
I feel cut across Africa, our governments are not doing enough to help the youths to be able to mitigate these menace that we have in our society.
Which is substance abuse.
Substance abuse, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You think it's becoming a big problem in Africa?
It's becoming a big problem. And I feel like in the next 10 to 11 years, we are going to have a lot of irreversible psychosis due to the substance abuse. Because most of the substances that they're using right now are substances that have not been proven, that have not been researched. So in the long run, if we are not careful, we're going to have a lot of mentally challenged folks in the street if we're not careful.
Wow, that's deep.